What if I told you that we all have unmet needs and expectations? Yet at times we end up frustrated and seconds awakened to people, things, and places that are merely phases of infatuations. In some cases, they were an aphrodisiac until they deserted you. Or the person who gave you hope paraded you for a joke and provoked you to do things you swore that you would never do. Self-conscious, while filtering through abandonment, rejection, and shame. Smoke sits with clouds, no highs, keep lows above the ground. Sorrow pulls you into a past that feels so long and each day seems shorter than the last. Is it just me? Or have you ever been hurt but lied and said you were all right? Have you ever cried yourself to sleep for several nights? Have you ever been sitting up in your room sick of love songs? Someone will fail us at one point or another. Mother, father, friend, sibling, bae. We all come up short even when we try to make change. Pretending the heart isn't connected to the brain, there's anger and blame. Pride has a propensity to alter our ego, so I walk it like they talk it, camouflage and listening to your amigos. So we'll taste before we touch. Bitterness comes before trust. We huff, then puff till someone calls our bluff. And it's hard to give or receive when we know how people can mistreat us. And 1,000 explanations can't fully help us understand why. So we can survive but be afraid to thrive. Levels of pressure fluctuate from anxiety to hate. Memories rehearsing what I could have, would have, should have said instead. So we're victims and bystanders living a double-minded life, watching the drama like a crime scene. So we have cold feet and still. Every man is a social species, so whether civilized or living in a teepee, it was never good to be alone. Dwelling in trauma is like locking yourself into solitary confinement. There is no silver lining. Robbed out of joy, so we become destitute and wondering why we can't find peace in solitude. Could it be that pain is the contrast of a picture with arrays of color that reflect the sun who revolves around the earth? Stripes of red, black, and blue on torn linen, but he never flagged you, neglected by those he knew and questioned whether God had forsaken him too because of what others chose to do, and yet he chose you. Because how can we be made whole unless we love, hurt, and hope? The holes in the palm of his hands is why he holds us in the palm of his hands. Jesus is the example of what we have to handle before we receive the mantle. And though he was born to a lineage of kings, he was born in a manger so he wouldn't be in danger and wore a crown of thorns so a rose could evolve out of concrete in this world. We can't determine a person's worth as small because their mountains are tall. There's a part of us that can believe in a greater destiny, but wrestle with the weaknesses in humanity. So we'll tell God to take our cup when the table is already set up in front of our enemies. We wind up turning down a 3-course meal for Netflix and chill instead of praying for God's will to be complete. What's ironic is sometimes we become so desensitized to sensitive matters that we project the very thing that depleted our minds. God's love for us is more than a feeling, it's a response. So we don't get what we deserve, we get what we didn't earn, but make no mistake, it will cost us our comfort. Occupying a space with no rent means a lack of commitment. Inhabiting a home with an unpaid mortgage, any day you'll get evicted. Sadly, compassion has morphed into proper manners and good habits. Since when does forgiveness mean I managed to say nice things so there's no damage? Or I felt some type of way so I'll throw shade and become a savage. It's a humbling anger not to attack or criticize when you've been tried. However, abuse and dysfunction are not to be condoned because Jesus sits on the throne. If he is bad to the bone, it's your cue to go let that dog go sniff and roam. If she sticks to your wallets like glue, you'll never reap from what she's sown, especially when what's in hair hasn't grown. Time and energy is a valuable commodity. So what happens when we're exposed to evil? Denounce the devil and forgive the people. The affirmation that we are all beautifully and wonderfully made can be hard to face when the fairest of them all is not your equal, but the mirror becomes cracked based on how we see people, and Christ can heal that. Our defense mechanisms draw us into a glass half full, but how can we be filled to the brim and running over if we're shaken or stirred? If the heart receives oxygen from the blood, then Jesus bled so that love would be breath taking. Moments of happiness is a multivitamin for the soul, a supplement for joy. It doesn't make you mature. If iron sharpens iron, it shouldn't make us cutthroat. When judgment rules over mercy, we throw stones, hold grudges, and enslave the guilty. But what good is it if we are blessed by our testimony, but can't live in harmony? He is more pleased when we care about those who are not blameless, those who are not our favorites, the outcast deemed strangers. What if God told you that Jesus did not come to meet every need or dot each I and cross every T, but he loved us so that we would go outside of our comfort zones and not leave others astray like the boy from Home Alone?